I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with a very special guest, someone I am extremely excited to have on. Gentleman needs no introduction. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jody Dahrouge is here for the 325th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk markets, gold, silver, copper, lithium. I'm curious to get Jody's take on lithium. We're going to talk stocks. We're going to talk Department of Defense. A lot to get to. Jody, first and foremost, great to have you on. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Lots of green on the screen today, so it changes my mood.
I
Changes
joke I
everybody's mood.
joked up. Yeah, I joked off air today. We use this smart again, at least for today, right? Nothing but green. And a lot of what I think are very structural developments, right? We're going to talk about the Department of Defense and MP materials and how consequential I think that's going to be. And not just for the US, I think for all of North America. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, some of the critical metals plays in Canada are also ripping today, and I expect that to continue. So I'd love to get your take here in just a second. But look, here in America, we've solved all of our political problems. It's unicorns and rainbows. Everything is great. How are things up north, man?
Oh my God, my son said, don't talk politics. Whatever you do, do not talk.
That was the first question I had to throw at you, right?
Elbows up, right? That's an old hockey phrase from you go in the corner, you put your elbow up, you defend yourself, you inflict a little bit of pain on the other guy, but reality is it was all a lie. You
Yeah,
know, we
yeah,
we have a prime minister who, you know, 70-80% of Canadian trades with the US. And he's off trying to make deals with the 4%, which is Europe. Reality is, Canada and the US have been the best of friends, the best allies forever.
yeah.
You know what? Just be friendly to Trump. Get a deal, like work with the US. Nothing's going to change this relationship.
Yeah,
We need the United States, right?
yeah.
And I think a closer relationship would be great for both sides of the border.
No, I think it's beneficial. And we don't have to get into the political aspects of it because this, it's not a political podcast, right? But it is policy is consequential, right? I had a gentleman and salute to the gentleman, Air Force, and he said, "Hey, can you curse a little less? And can you maybe keep politics out of it?" And respectfully to that gentleman, right? Thank you for your service, but it's hard to talk making money and stocks and monetary and fiscal policy without addressing the politics that comes with it, right? We have copper this week that made a new all-time high on the futures, and it did that off of a policy decision, right? It came off of a 30-second statement where Trump said he was going to impose a 50% tariff on all copper coming into the US. So whether or not you agree with Trump on whatever, that's very consequential for my portfolio because I can tell you my copper stocks have been ripping all week, right?
Well, the whole critical metals trade, whether it's rare earth minerals, whether it's copper, this is all predicated on politics, right? And Trump's woken up to the fact that the United States doesn't have rare earths, or more importantly, rare earth mineral processing.
Mm,
That's the key attribute here, making the magnets. The transaction that was done today with MP Materials, like that's Mountain Pass carbonatite. It's been known for a long time. It's really enriched in the light rare earths, like the neodymium and the
yeah.
praseodymium are there. But the more heavy magnet feed, the more heavy rare earths out of the
Yep.
15, the dysprosium, the terbium, those are the rare earths you need to make those permanent
Absolutely.
magnets sustainable at high temperatures. Jet engines, EVs. Like, so this, I really think today's announcements a precursor for many announcements that will come in the specialty metals or rare or critical metal sector. It's not going to be a one-off because there's got to be sort of development of that more heavy component. Um, you know, uh, Another company that I follow closely because we do a bit of work for is NioCorp with that beautiful niobium deposit in Elk Creek,
Yeah.
Nebraska. Uh, the world's niobium market is essentially controlled by CBML, what this Brazilian company, because they have the world's best deposit by a long shot.
Yeah.
Arashaw is something like 400 million tons of percent niobium. Nothing comes close to that. But it's not domestic to the US, right? The
Right.
US relies
Right.
on it just like the rest of the world. But here you have this beautiful rare metal deposit in the middle of Nebraska, just looking for funding and a leg up. And there's really no shortage of rare earths, but there's shortage of locations they can be extracted economically.
Well,
Right.
and that's the key, right? And so just to provide everyone context, the Department of Defense deal, it's a multi-billion dollar 10-year public-private partnership with MP Materials to build a fully domestic magnet supply chain, right? And so that includes a second US magnet plant and an expanded heavy rare earth separation at Mountain Pass because again, Mountain Pass is endowed with the lights, but there's not a lot of the heavies there and the extraction is what's always been the Achilles heel for a lot of the companies. And I mistook, right? Luck for brains and a bull market for brains back in 2010. I did phenomenally well trading the rare earth stocks in the US and in Canada, right? There was Rare Element Resources, there was Quest Rare Minerals. There were a couple of other ones that I did
Commerce
extremely well.
Resources. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the Achilles heel that ended up proving to be the problem for a lot of those companies is the extraction portion of it. It's so intense and it's so complicated that you need the kind of funding and the kind of guarantee that this deal provides, that this Department of Defense deal provides. And so it provides a floor price for 10 years, ensuring that MP will get paid, even if China comes in and floods the market like it has in the lithium space, right? Can you imagine a guarantee for North American companies like a Patriot Battery Metals or, you pick your company, but a guarantee that when their material comes to market in however many years, 3 years, 4 years, that there's going to be a floor for 10 years and it's just going to be there. That would incentivize the Volkswagens of the world, the chemical companies of the world to absolutely come in and help capitalize and advance what is, to use your words, an absolutely beautiful deposit. And I want to talk about some of the we they're supposed to be the byproduct metals, and hopefully the people at Patriot don't get upset. But the cesium and some of the other metals are extremely valuable, and we know that lithium will continue to be the flagship there, and we'll get into that here in just a bit. But the other metals, I'm really curious to get your take on that. So no, look, I think this is a humongous deal. There's also a $150 million Department of Defense loan and $1 billion in private financing lined up from JP Morgan and Goldman. So you have JP Morgan, Goldman, the Department of Defense coming in and saying, we're going to backstop a critical metal supply chain here in the US. And again, I think that bodes well, extremely well for our friends up north where you reside, Mr. Dahrouge.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that the Defense Department announcement, that was brilliant because putting a floor price on a commodity that is thinly traded or the market's opaque, it guarantees production because it shows you, look, we can still make money at 110 bucks a pound or whatever the price was for the neodymium, praseodymium.
Yep.
But and if you do that with other other critical metals that are specialty metals, copper is different because copper is such a big market, right?
Sure.
And the
Sure.
market, it'll determine and sort itself out. But those thinly traded metals, the tantalum, the cesium, uh, the lithium, like a floor price under those will guarantee mines will go in production and will guarantee like a domestic supply for a long term. Niobium will be another one, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah. No, yeah. Look, no coincidence that again, Patriots caught a substantial bid lately. And I said let's save it for later, but we'll get to gold and silver eventually. Let's get right into it with Patriot and that deposit. I am by no
Right.
means a cesium expert or any of the other metals, but I know that you've been studying what's there and you've done your own calculations. And we talked a bit off air. We don't have to share it on air if you don't want to, but the value of the other metals to me and my simple brain, and I'm a simple brain guy, seems like it could be equivalent or even more than the lithium, which again, champagne problems for Patriot and shareholders because
No
that's a good
kidding.
thing.
Like a friend of mine says Patriot, the Corvette deposits. Sorry, I'm not going to call it shock or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I call it Corvette. Uh, that deposit has no peers. There's nothing like it. There has never been a deposit with this accumulation of critical metals in one location ever discovered. I mean, you could say Tanko from the cesium
Sure.
standpoint, maybe Bakita in Southwest Africa, uh, but really nothing like it because you have this deposit that looks in some respects a lot like Greenbushes
Yeah.
because of the tantalum, the high grades of lithium, the cesium from Tanko's perspective, and then they found or recognized that there's all this gallium in it
Hmm.
that potentially could be extracted. I kind of look at Patriot now. Is it a cesium deposit with lithium byproduct? You look at Power Metals publishes on their website. They're really the ones that kind of open the door for other players in
Yeah.
modern times, recent times. But if you look on their recent resource estimate, they quote for ton of pollucite concentrate, which apparently is 15 to 20% cesium, that trades for about $35,000.
Mm,
Well, when I put my back of the envelope numbers together with what I see at Rigel and CV13 for the cesium, it's well, maybe the cesium is worth more than the lithium, right? And it's in such a tiny contained area. It's like a
yeah.
uranium deposit. It's
Yeah.
like next gen, except
Yeah.
it's cesium, it's super high grade, amazing ore body, lots of pounds of cesium. And the cesium market, it all comes back to how big's the market. And this is MP materials and the rare earths.
Yeah.
And nobody really knows how big this opaque market is, but my best guess is anywhere from 100 million to 300 million a year.
Okay.
Well, we mentioned CBMM, how it
Yeah.
controls 80% of the world's niobium market. Well, from what I see, what Patriot's reported, that's going to be Patriot with the cesium market in
Mm,
5, 6, 7 years. The
mm,
cesium market is this market that's limited in size because it doesn't exist.
right.
It's the rarest metal on the planet, essentially, and it only occurs in these incredibly high grades in this highly evolved pegmatites. And Patriot just happened to has one that maybe wasn't eroded, or the original intrusive was originally blessed in cesium, but my again, I've put back the envelope numbers on Twitter, and I don't know anything specific. I've just taken what Darren's released or what the
Yeah.
company's released, and X times Y times Z, drew a couple cross sections, and I see a couple million tons there of anywhere from probably 3 to 5%. With some really high grades, maybe approaching 7 to 10% in some places, and uh, I'm trying to convince Darren and Cam, guys, take a bulk sample, store it in a warehouse in Montreal, have guards there, of course, because you'll probably have hundreds of millions of dollars of cesium sitting there.
Yeah.
It'll cost you almost nothing to extract, and then walk all the consumers, then buyers through. Let them
Yeah.
take samples. Let
Yeah.
them. There is a growth market for cesium. Like right now, the cesium market again, it's constrained, it's tiny
Sure.
because it doesn't exist. People can't produce it
Sure.
because they don't have the deposits. Um, but Patriots changed all that.
Yeah.
That's changed.
Yeah.
And the biggest end use, if you start Googling cesium perovskite solar panels, which are 20 to 30% or 20+% more efficient than the current
Yeah.
solar market, this could be a game changer for the entire solar industry. Could you imagine suddenly solar panels are 20 to 30% more efficient because of
Yeah.
this key ingredient only Patriot has?
Yeah. No, no, no. Look, champagne problems, and just you put out your numbers, right? So in situ value, would you come up with just with your back of the napkin uh, valuation
Well,
there?
if there's 2 million tons, say at 4 or 5%, you're starting to exceed $10 billion
It's
worth of
nuts.
cesium. But in a tiny tonnage, like a couple million tons.
Yeah.
Like it's so you strip off all the waste on CV13. Like the cost to get at this is peanuts relative to the ore body. And if suddenly the solar industry adopts these cesium perovskite solar panels because Patriot has all the cesium, that's a game changer for not just for it's for a $400 billion a year industry. My understanding is like the EV industry right now is about $800 billion
Right.
in total cars. This is
Right.
Grok telling me when I ask Grok,
Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
question.
Yep.
So I'll blame Grok for my answers, but the cesium, the solar panel industry is half that. And if Patriot has the key to making it 20, 30% more efficient, well, what company's not going to want to do that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Tesla, right, where I produce EVs and also I produce solar panels, I'm all over this. Like, I am. Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how crazy my ideas are here in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months. But I agree with you. It's a great problem to have. I love how Ken and the team have now made it a point. Um, to start explaining those markets and those metals a bit more. And
yeah,
credit to them. They went back and they're the ones that decided let's reassay this for these other metals, right? Stuff was just sitting there and nobody really thought to look until, they thought to look. So congrats to them and congrats to us long-term shareholders that went from 16 cents to 18 bucks and now we're sitting at 3 and happy that it's
Yeah,
at 3.
what a roller coaster. I I have a group chat with a few big shareholders, and we're always like, they should think of this, they should think of that. And I phone Ken, and man, he's 20 steps ahead of us. Like
Yeah.
he's thought it, he's walked through it, he's done it, and he's on to several other steps we haven't even felt. So rest assured, they've got the right people running the company. They're doing
Yeah.
great things. And
It's zero
right now,
doubts.
they're hyper focused on getting the feasibility study published, so they
As they
can
should
get the
be.
environmental
Yeah.
packs filed, so they can get that mine permit.
Yeah.
Right. And when that mine permit comes, the price of lithium is going to be back rocking, and the timing is going to be great. I
We'll be smart
fingers.
again. Fingers crossed. No, 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 no. I have zero doubts. I get it all the time on Twitter or X or what have you. It's like, hey, Gerardo, what happened to your $30, $40 call on Patriot? I said, it's still there. Like it was all predicated on the end game. The end game was when we get into production or when we get bought out. And I know for a fact we're not getting bought out at anything close to these prices because frankly, the large block of shareholders that own the largest bulk of shares can block it. It won't happen. Two, I know the
They are
company
good.
doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And Jody knows. So again, if Ken does what Ken does, and I suspect that Ken has zero problems pushing this towards a production decision. Um, everybody that was patient and everybody that took advantage of this brutal consolidation. Let's be clear. I'm not eyes closed and rose colored glasses on this. It's been a tough consolidation because yes, I would love the shares that our group has sitting there to be at market value a lot higher. But at the end of the day, the end game was the end game, and the end game is still in play. And I think it's more in play today with the Cesium than it was when I made, those $30, $40 calls back in the day.
absolutely. It changes the game. Like suddenly it's a cesium, gallium, lithium, tantalum. This tantalum. What a nice byproduct. They recover it at Pilbara. No offense to Pilbara. I mean, a beautiful ore body, and Ken built a $10 billion business out of it.
Yeah.
What can he do with a much better ore body with cesium, with gallium, with
Yeah.
tantalum, with the one thing that people aren't realizing with gallium. So my understanding is gallium, which is so what why gallium is important to Patriot. So gallium occurs in the spodumene. It has this incredible affinity for aluminum. Right now, it's primarily, my understanding, is extracted 98% in China. So
Right.
China controls the world's gallium market. Gallium nitride is used in high-end computer chips. It replaces silicon.
Yep.
And so it's an incredibly valuable little commodity, maybe even more valuable than the cesium, but it doesn't occur at the same percentages that the blue side occurs at Patriot.
Right.
But in some parts, it upgrades in the spodumene. So at some point, when you're roasting that spodumene, you're going to create a situation where you can extract the gallium
Right.
in a very similar way to gallium's extracted in bauxite ores. And another critical metal, all in one deposit that
Yeah.
could potentially be extracted. Um,
Yeah. So again, this wasn't supposed to be about Patriot. This was a primer on critical metals, y'all. But yeah, Patriot happens to have a lot of the pretty ones, right? A lot of the valuable ones. We got it's all gold and silver. Gold looking to me beautifully technically. We have policy here in this country that however you feel about it, we're going to continue to add to what's already a record breaking deficit. We're going to add to it pretty aggressively. And so uh, that's extremely bullish for gold. It's not extremely bullish for everyone that is not an asset owner. We have an all-time high in Bitcoin, all-time high in housing prices, all-time high in the markets, all-time high in copper, and yet we're talking about Fed rate cuts and the president's begging for three cuts that are 300 basis points lower. It's an insane, bizarro world that we live in, right? But that is what's happening right now. That is the market. And so when I look at gold, when people think they missed the run, I'm telling them I think it's the fourth inning if we're talking baseball parlance. I don't think you've missed the run. I think the run is just starting. I think there's a lot of game to be played in the gold space. Thoughts on gold?
we're just starting. We're just start. Look at if you want to know where gold's going. Look at what the big banks are doing around the world. They're stockpiling gold.
Yep.
There's a reason. They need a physical store of wealth. that's going to provide insurance against fluctuating currencies. And we talked about this off the air or earlier on that I think Trump and the US needs to devalue its currency, make its
Yeah.
manufactured products more competitive on a world basis. Like there's a method to what Trump's doing, and there's a reason that deficit that what is the US deficit this year? $2 trillion,
30
$3 trillion.
yeah, well, we're up to $37 trillion and we're adding a couple of trillion every year. And now we're going to add, yes, a substantial amount every year moving forward for the next 10.
That's almost impossible to pay back. Like if I
It
looked at
is.
my household and I made uh and I made 20 grand a year and I spent 30, there'd be an issue.
That's my point. That's my point. So yes, yeah, unfortunately, gold is headed higher for those reasons, and unfortunately, I think we end up with some sort of monetary reset, and that's me and my tinfoil hat. We'll see if that happens or not one day. But regardless of that, there's ways to profit from it, and that's the whole premise of this podcast, right? Is to kind of look at the broader themes and try to get ahead of them and try to position for them. Hence the reason, Jody, you and I have been writing checks left and right, positioning aggressively, in the critical metal space, in the copper space, in the gold space. Got to talk silver a bit. You mentioned solar panels and the market for some of these other metals, but silver's also there's a component there. And now silver has the luxury of trading both as an industrial metal on the demand side there, but now it's trading like a precious metal. Had a breakout today on the spot price, finally breaking that 37 level and looking like it wants to break 38 and run to new all-time highs. Thoughts on silver?
Silver's the it's sort of the poor man's gold, for lack of a better term. The average guy who doesn't necessarily invest in precious metals, he watches gold take a run. And then he sees, well, it's getting a bit expensive for me, but silver hasn't moved yet. And it's got this historic ratio of 40, 80 to 1, whatever it is. And now that ratio is becoming incredibly stretched.
Yeah.
And people are getting into silver. And at some point, silver is going to go on a tear just like gold does. Does it go to 100, 200? It's going to hit some pretty impressive numbers at some point. For, like you said, two reasons. It's got this big industrial demand,
Yeah.
but two, it's also got this precious metal side to it that people forget about. And not for long. People
Yeah.
will get
I
into this
agree.
into silver, and it'll take off just like gold did. Yeah, and the other ones that are taking off a little bit, look at the platinum group elements. Have you seen
Absolutely.
platinum's
Yeah.
up 30% in the
Yeah.
last month?
Just put in an 11-year high here recently, right? And had the biggest monthly move forward in 4 decades, and almost no one's paying attention to that, right? Yeah.
So
No,
yeah, the platinum
there's yeah.
they're looking pretty cheap here. Platinum's at what, 1300, 1350, palladium at 11, 1200.
Yeah,
I think they're close for a big move as well.
I
Um,
agree. I
that
absolutely agree. It's funny you call silver the poor man's gold. I call it the mistress, not the wife. Gold being the wife, but that's neither here nor there, right?
I ain't a lot of silver.
There
I'm
you
I'm
go.
a believer. Yeah.
Yeah, same, same. Have a lot of silver exposure and really excited about that exposure as well because there's so many companies and there's so at the end of this podcast, Jody, there's a premium part of it where subscribers that pay for the podcast will get some picks and some ideas and we'll get to that here in about 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes or so and I'll ask for some of your picks and some names that you like in all the sectors and the reasons why, but I get really excited about the silver positions I have because they haven't really participated in the run like the gold companies have. And, I love the explorers. I'm naturally just high risk, high reward. That's where I've done the best in my career. And some of the names that I have, I couldn't be more giddy about because they're drilling and we're pretty confident on how those results are going to turn out. So yeah, agree with you on silver, no doubt.
I'm the same. I like the explorers because they're high risk, high reward. Discoveries are made, and you get that excitement. Remember Patriot, it ran up to 17,
Oh,
18 bucks
so much
on,
fun.
on the back of a discovery. You see that in precious metals all the time. Someone makes
Yeah.
it, pulls an amazing drill hole, and next thing you know, everybody's piling into it.
Yeah. No, 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 good stuff. I have to ask you about lithium. We talked Patriot and we focus mostly on the other metals, but lithium has put in, I want to say it's 13 consecutive days on the futures of being in the green. That hasn't happened in a really, really long time. And a lot of the names that got just beat up, which is all of them, by the way, are have made pretty significant rebounds. Now, granted, it's rebounds coming off the lows, right? So when we say this company's up 50% from its lows. Well, that's after coming down some 75, 80% from their highs. So I want to provide the proper context and
Yeah.
baseline there. But it's an impressive rebound nonetheless. And I think it has a heck of a runway. Thoughts on lithium and where you see that market right now?
I think we're coming off the bottom. That's clear. And the stocks often lead the bottom, but
Yeah.
I think this charge is kind of predicated on that day after day after day of lithium prices increasing, increasing, increasing. When you hear a lot of negative sentiment in the West about, oh, the demand's not there. It might not be there in Canada, maybe it's not there in the US, but it's a big world. You know, Volkswagen, I think, just announced this month an increase of year-over-year car sales of almost
Hmm.
30%.
Hmm.
Car sales in China are off the chart. EV car sales are off the chart.
Yeah.
So Asia is a pretty big market. India is a big market. Australia is participating. You know, maybe South Korea and Japan haven't quite caught on, but they will. It's just a matter of time. Somebody once told me that an EV from the tires to the steering wheel has about 35 parts,
Yeah.
essential parts.
Yeah.
An automobile, like a gas powered automobile,
Yeah.
has over 300.
Yeah.
It's the simplicity of the model that will make it the winner in the long term. I, I'm not sure you saw, but BYD announced a solid state battery
Yeah.
car that has a 1,200-mile range now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What car has 1,200-mile range?
Yeah.
Like, what gas powered car has a 1,200-mile range? It doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. No, no, no. I absolutely agree that we're coming off the bottom, that we've put in a bottom, and that's exciting because as brutal as the consolidation in the lithium space can be, the turn back up, they're just as violent, right? They're just as violent. And so, maybe I'm a masochist and I hold positions longer than I should. But again, as long as you know what the end game is and you know your risk tolerance and you have the liquidity to see your end game through, if your thesis is proven right, you can do really, really well with these consolidations when you're adding or averaging down on positions that are gonna end up, 10, 20 folds from today's price levels easily here in the next couple of
Everybody
years.
should be. I think everybody should be averaging down here. Like this might be that one opportunity, the last opportunity before the really big move, because the modern world, the EV world, it's not stopping. One area that's completely underestimated is the grid storage, right? We
Yep.
talked about solar and the incredible growth of solar. Well, solar is being paired with batteries now.
Yeah.
So you put a solar panel on your house. You live in Australia. You put a couple grid storage batteries on there. You plug your car in. It can act as storage. Uh, you don't need the grid anymore. You're self sufficient.
Yeah.
That solar can power those batteries, fill them up, and oh, Siri's listening to us.
Yeah, of course, Siri's listening to us. Everybody's always listening to us, Jody, especially here in America. I don't know about up north, but I just assume everyone's always listening. Um, I want to go back to this Department of Defense MP deal on the magnet side, on the rare earth side. Do you think clearly Trump has a plan, right? And clearly he's being advised well on that front. Um, to establish domestic critical metal supply chains that are independent from China. That's clear as day, right? Anybody could see that. But do you think that spills over into a sector like lithium? They clearly, there's an emphasis on uranium. There's an emphasis now on the rare earths.
But there's already been a spillover into lithium. Lithium. There's Thacker Pass, right? Lithium Americas. Like they got the investment from what is it, the State Department, and
And General
they've got
Motors. Yeah.
so there's a lot of focus on U.S. supply, uh, but it's not going to be enough, right?
Yeah.
You and I talked about that nice pegmatite in South Dakota, like that's spodumene in the U.S. Albemarle has Kings Mountain
Yeah.
in North Carolina. That's a U.S. based project. When I'm looking for projects, I'm looking for U.S. based projects because the Trump factor, this guy's going to fast track mines like
Yeah.
nobody else. He's going to ensure that the United States is self sufficient in all these critical metals. Things like cesium, well, you're only going to get that from Canada. But I think there's a deal coming between Canada and the United States. And when that happens, that's going to be great for all the lithium players in North America.
Yeah.
And traditionally, you want spodumene,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who's got spodumene? Q2, Patriot, Albemarle.
Yeah.
There's a whole suite of them, right?
No, I think that's a perfect segue now that we're kicking some names around to get to the premium portion of the podcast. I'm Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Jody Dahrouge, the man, the myth, the legend. This was the 325th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Have a great week, everybody. Before I let everyone go, I want to just send condolences to everybody out here in Central Texas. We had over 100 people pass, and several still missing, and just destruction just hours away from here, from a body of water that is, runs minutes away from our second home here. And we were fortunate enough to not have not anyone damaged, hurt, and no property damage, but a lot of other people weren't as fortunate. So just condolences to everybody out there. Keep at it, keep safe, y'all. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming.